And I want to start off the session by, wow, what a relief to hear some different music. And I finally get to try my different skins for free. Music transitions could be better though. Other than that, you spawn into a great carpet in the Nexus. And second off, you gotta name your character, of course. Recurry box 12 was taken. I must admit, first player experience is kind of confusing. You enter the vault and it's not really clear what you can do with all these different things, such as the Rune Master. It's good to see you got 2 chests for free. And I entered the settings and realized that a lot of things has changed. They actually allow you to change specific graphics and settings on each part of the gameplay. You can buy things for fame in the Nexus. Awesome! This is a common trend you will see on RotF, that they take critique from the Realm of Midgard community and implement it into the game so that at least they satisfy those needs. It's a really smart trick to drag people from RotMG to RotF because they fix a lot of things that the community isn't really happy with. And I think this is one of the reasons that people keep telling me to play RotF. No, I'm not going to feature any comments because Jesus Christ, I get so many of them. 150 people in a realm. Okay. You should probably know that epic versions of each monster exists in the lowlands. Yeah, nothing is safe. At least sprite worlds have to be the same. I'm sorry, this really bugs me. You start to realize that you're almost guaranteed loot with your tier 0 sword. Drop chances are much higher in RotF. A pet peeve of mine, that bag is way too big. I mean, make it smaller so that you can actually enter the dungeon. And don't enter the second boss that drops after you've killed the first one with shit loot. Personal experience. Play ranged the first time you play. No, play priest. Well, at this point in time, this dumbass didn't realize that, because there's no such a thing as a pet when you just started. As you can see, this game is really focusing on being as fast-paced as possible. You can't enter a realm without there being some kind of event boss in the realm. And it's really easy to get loot, so I get why people might play this game, because it's much more fast-paced and it's harder. You could argue it's harder. I mean, just look at the cemetery. They skipped all the parts where the boss is speaking to make it more fast-paced, because people are impatient in the real game. But that's the art of Realm of Midgard. That's why it's so hard to get on top, and that's why it feels earned when you make it to that top spot. And for me, that part isn't just worth skipping. RotF still needs some polishing. There's still a bunch of sprite errors and small mistakes around, and I don't really get the damage text that's beside the damage that you deal. I might just be dumb. I don't really get why it's some kind of code or something. I don't know. The dungeon reworks are kind of okay, I think. Still enjoy the original a little better. These remakes are just made to make the game harder overall, which is why I think the new player experience is not as good as Realm of the Midgard, because it's not as beginner friendly. Pots is another point. It might be easier to max your stats, but I mean, look at these epic guards. It's a giant Medusa. Also, when the realm closes, there goes like 30 seconds and you're into Oryx already. Tiny thing I don't really like, you're not invulnerable when the ground starts shaking, and when you TP, you aren't invulnerable for the first 1 second. So end sitting is possible. Oryx Castle is really fast paced. Also, these quiet bombs don't give quiet. It's like the older versions of RotMG. I'm not gonna stop comparing this game to RotMG because it's an interpretation. I simply can't. I mean, it's trying to be so different, but I can't. Look at this. You go straight to the wine cellar instead of Oryx first. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much the same as RotMG. I don't think that the boss fights are as good from what I've seen. I think it's more well thought out and well sprited in the real Realm of Midgard. And also when players move around, it looks like they're floating. You really start to like that you get loot every single time, because there's this adrenaline going through your blood because you know you're gonna get something. Only downside is that you don't have to be as lucky to get the same items, at least compared to RotMG. Speaking of that, the heroic dungeons. Deca was a little late compared to RotF. Here's the epic Oryx 3 fight. This battle is a little way too intense for my taste, because the shots are moving way too quickly to dodge. And as I will show later, it's really hard to predict these shots. You can remember the shot patterns, but it's still about luck. And I don't think that's all about skill. You also realize that the general difficulty of the game has been raised, since also the paramount attack gives you 10 attack instead of 7, and so does all the other rings. There's a minor buff on everything, and that really explains its purpose. It's all about bringing new difficulty and a challenge for the experienced white stars from Realm of the Mad God to get that new player experience again. And watch out entering a dungeon you don't know. Small nitpick, but these pixel inconsistencies where the great bosses just have bigger pixels instead of a lot of pixels, but smaller, so that the look of the game stays consistent, and that looks kind of weird, just pointing out. But still, this is fucking terrifying. I mean, look at that. Just look at that. I mean, some of you experienced RotF players, you might not be scared by that, but that is terrifying. Also, if you're a RotMG player and you want to try this game out, keep playing, keep making new characters, because you can't get the full experience by giving up on the first death. Here's an example of the quick shot pattern I mentioned. Other than that, the experience I've gained so far is, well, positive. I don't think this game is a replacement for the original, and I don't really get why people keep arguing about this. The Realm of the Mad God community is really white knighting themselves and keep defending and trying to push RotF away from the game. And I don't think that's the correct way of doing it. All these people in my comments saying RotF is better than RotMG, and all these other people attacking them and saying RotMG is better and that RotF is not a very good game. You could at least go to one of my comment sections and see some person say that, and 10 replies saying that the other person is wrong. It's really not a matter of fact, but of opinion, because these two games are trying to achieve something very different. The other one is a very fast-paced version of the one we already have, but that also means that the time that you spend on something doesn't give the same outcome that you would get in Realm of the Mad God. Many people say that the boring part of the game is the farming, and that part is like almost removed from RotF, because there's so many pot drops and it's much easier to max stats. But that doesn't make it worse. So, final statement. RotMG is not necessarily better than Revenge of the Fallen, but that doesn't mean that the other game is higher, because, after all, Realm of the Mad God is still better. No, I wasn't meant to say that. Revenge of the Fallen players, I respect you, and I know I've only had, what, 45 minutes of gameplay, but I get to see the trend, and I hope I was right in this video, and don't be mad if I was wrong. This is overall my opinion, but don't expect me to switch over to Revenge of the Fallen. I might make a video on it in the future, but only if I feel like it. And a comment or a 10 reply discussion ain't gonna change my mind. So let's just stop fighting about this war and keep saying that all the Realm of the Mad God players should go over to RotF because it's much better. Let's stop that. Let's completely stop that. Let's declare peace. Reshit declares peace. That's the almighty words. I will finally ascend. See you in hell, shitbag, fuck cars, shit car.
I just hit a lick, put them bands on my wrist, yo. I just fucked 2 bitches.